My lords.
Baroness could speak.
So many voices, thank you. Before I begin, my lords, I need to remind the House that the usual channels has allowed Lady Wilkins to finish my speech, should I not be able to do so. But I hope to be able to do it myself, as I have a lot to say on this issue. I would like to speak against the amendment by my noble Lord, Lord Faulkner. It is the overarching intention of this amendment that I wish to address, and I'd rather leave the detail of the legal implications to my learned noble friends. It is simply the culture that this amendment will bring about. It's something that I do feel my noble lords need to think about. And I simply wish to point out that by going with this amendment, we turn the traffic lights from red to green on state-sanctioned assisted dying, be it in another country. And be it under no illusion, my noble lords, this isn't about disability. It is. I tick every box of Lord Faulkner's definition for going to Switzerland to die. I could go tomorrow, and believe me, I would have no problem persuading 2 doctors. Indeed, 3 years ago, 2 doctors persuaded me that my life was at an end, and it was time for me to go on my way, as they put a DNR notice on my medical records. So it is about disabled people, and it is about people with terminal conditions. Many of your lordships will remember that these issues were discussed in much detail when Lord Joffrey's assisted dying, for the terminally ill bill was debated in 2004. I did not have the honour of being a member of your lordship's house at that time, so I was not in the chamber. However, I wasn't far away. I was across the road in Old Palace Yard with more than 100 other disabled people with terminal conditions. Motor neuron disease, multiple sclerosis, you name it, we were there. And we were protesting against this bill. We were not alone. Many people joined us. My lords, why were the terminally ill there? Why were disabled people there? After all, Lord Joffrey had stated time and time again that his aim was to help us. We were there for a very simple reason. Because we feared for our lives and the lives of hundreds of other disabled people if this bill was to become law. Our belief that if the state were to sanction any one person to assist another in the ending of that person's life, then it would switch the mindset of doctors and those who are partners in this country, thinking that actually this is what we really want. The very people, my lords, who need every encouragement to live and not to succumb to society's prevalent view that our situation is so tragic, so burdensome, so insufferable, that surely we must want to die. It takes an extraordinary will to rise above such views, and many do not, especially when those views are held by our loved ones. That's when it's the hardest. Concern about the assisted dying bill led to a formation of an organisation that we naughtily called Not Dead Yet UK. I've got t-shirts at home. You can have one if you like. This name is taken from the long-established group of disabled and terminally ill people in the United States. Their experience of Oregon, my lords, and the potential of other states to adopt similar legislation has heightened the fear of disabled and terminally ill people in America. Not lessened it, it does not bring comfort, as so many people think that this amendment will bring in this country. Noble Lords will be aware that not a single organisation of or for terminally ill people or older people supports this assisted dying legislation. This includes organisations which advocate on behalf of people with motor neuron disease and multiple sclerosis, two disabling conditions which are often referred to when describing who would benefit most from this legislation. Today, my lords, an open letter imploring noble lords to resist these amendments was delivered to the newspaper with only over 20 signatories from disabled leaders and their organisations. Disabled people, including the Chief Executive of Radar and the National Centre for Independent Living. With the exception of a few vocal, and I have no doubt, sincere disabled individuals, assisted dying is not supported by the very people it is intended to benefit. Its advocates are people who fear disability and terminal illness, people who have witnessed the progressive nature of disability or illness, but who have not experienced it. A natural reaction, you may think, to any dramatic circumstance, but to suggest assisted dying or this amendment is to abandon hope and to ignore the majority of disabled and terminally ill whose life benefits us all. Rosie, will you do one?
This House has repeatedly taken the view that it cannot support assisted dying. Proponents for a change in the law have brought several bills to this House, each more tightly drawn than the last. However, your lordships have seen through that tactic and held firm. I believe that these amendments are being used in another attempt to find a chink in your lordship's armour. The justification given is that they are merely devices to bring the law into line with current practice. I do not believe that. I believe that they are intended to establish the precedent that assisted dying be sanctioned by the state. Where the deed is done is irrelevant. I'm sorry that some see this as merely a legal puzzle that can be solved with precise drafting of legislation, that it's possible to help the few while protecting the many. That's not the experience of either the Netherlands or Oregon, where the laws have been used to establish death as an option for all disabled and terminally ill people to consider. Legalising premature death as a treatment option plants a seed of doubt about one's right to demand help to live with dignity, and undermines the state's responsibility to ensure all citizens can live with dignity. This amendment succeeds If this amendment were to succeed, I believe it will place a new and invidious pressure on disabled and terminally ill people who think that they are close to the end of their lives. Some will consider death as preferable to fighting for support to live with dignity. It will be the cheapest, quickest, and simplest option. Think of older people who are anxious not to cause their families any distress. Evidence from research in this country and abroad shows that most people who seek assisted suicide give not wanting to be a burden as the principal reason for seeking death. The increased choice argument is not valid until we live in a society that values us equally, where we can live with dignity and do not feel burdens, a society whose health system offers genuine pain relief for everyone.
So lastly, if these amendments are to succeed, despair will be endorsed as a reasonable expectation for which early state-sanctioned death is an effective remedy. Is this really the message we wish to give disabled and terminally ill people? Is this really the future we wish to offer those who become terminally ill? Those of us who know what it is to live with a terminal condition are fearful that the tide has already turned against us. If I should ever seek death, and there have been times when my progressive condition challenges me, I want to guarantee that you are there supporting my continued life and its value. The last thing I want is for you to give up on me, especially when I need you most. My Lords, I urge you to reassure us by rejecting this amendment.
My Lords, I think it may come as a surprise to many in this House that I'm against this amendment. I'm a great believer in individual liberty and in the autonomy of the individual. However, I also believe very strongly in the symbolic nature of law. The laws of a nation say a great deal about who we are and what we value. One of the ways that cultural shifts take place in a society is by changing law. Many of us who have argued that changes in attitude follow changes in law did so, particularly around issues of discrimination. We made arguments for changes in the law on racism and other discrimination like gender, sexuality, disability, and when others argued against us and said that racism